First time to see anyway.
All right. Well, hello and welcome everyone. It is about 7:32 and I'd like to call the Madison Public School Board of Education meeting to order. If we could all please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Okay. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Thank you. Well, the days are getting longer, and despite today's cold weather, I think it feels a little more like spring out there, or at least around the corner. We have a lot of information to impart tonight, but before we embark on the business end of our agenda, I'd like to remind all of our guests, public, that our agenda and documents are on the Madison Public Schools website, in case you'd like to reference them. And I'd also like to say that we welcome public comment at our meetings. In fact, public participation is the very second item on our agenda. If you'd like to ask a question or make a comment, just please raise your hand in Zoom or ask Wendy, our host, via chat. And with that, I will turn it over to our board secretary, Emily Rosenthal, to moderate the discussion if anybody has any questions. So, Emily, it's all yours.
Thank you, Galen. Yes, as Galen said, we welcome public comment. We do request that when you are speaking, you state your name and your address. We limit comments to 3 minutes in order to ensure that all interested parties have an opportunity to speak. So I have the task of keeping track of your time and having to interrupt as politely as possible if your 3 minutes are up, so bear with me. Please speak on one topic per public comment session. Please do not identify individual staff members or students by name. While we are very happy to hear from our community, this is a business meeting, so that it should not be expected that the board will respond. But we will, however, do our best to follow up and contact you after the meeting, if you prefer. And as Galen said, if you'd like to have your comments read, please add them to the chat or down below. Wendy, do we have any members of the public who would like to speak?
We don't have any hands raised at the moment.
Give people a couple minutes to see how to do so if they want to.
Then I think we do have another chance. And Greg, you can correct me if I'm mistaken. It's the 6th item on our agenda after the superintendent's report and the Board of Selectmen's report. There's an audience response, and that'll be a little bit later in the meeting if you do want to ask a question. But
Okay, maybe we'll wait till later then.
Great. Okay. Well, next up is a report from our student representative, Eric Dillner. So Eric, you've got the floor, and why don't you take it away?
Hi, so the first thing is that on March 26th through 22nd through 26th, that whole week, we're going to have See Something, Say Something week. So usually it's just a couple days, but we're making it a whole week because we want both cohorts to have a chance to participate in it. It's where everyone gets to dress up in green and kind of just as a big happy reminder to say something if you see something, as the slogan says. So it's just a big kind of thing that we can all do together for the 22nd to the 26th that week. Also, as you heard in past meetings, the student input form that we have created for students to give input at just kind of like a Dropbox to say, here's something that we are seeing. People have been using it frequently, not like there's bad things, but they've been using it when they needed it, and it's not going unused. So we see that's a positive and a win for that. Also, the modified exam schedules are coming up. They're actually not even calling them exams, really. They're more assessments. They're kind of more like how they were in the past, which a lot of people are liking because we're able to take a little bit of weight off our backs, have that time in between our classes where it's just a half a day. And I know some of my teachers aren't doing exams. They're just doing like maybe a makeup test or finish what's left in the year. And we're all kind of liking it. It feels like it's a really good system. But we'll see how it goes. But I think it's going to be the best thing that we've had so far. Also, for sports, we've had different things like senior morning for the gymnastics teams. I know the girls basketball team has been doing really well. I believe they're just shy of top 10 or top 10. Also the band, chorus, vibe, jazz band, all the different musical groups have gotten their recordings of their concerts, and they're all up on the Danahan website for everyone to watch. So we're excited to see all those.
All right, thank you,
Yeah,
Eric.
so that's everything for this week.
All right, thank you. We're all very interested. Are there any questions for Eric? Eric, you got off easy, but I'm sure people will come up with things. Thank you. That was a great.
I have just,
Thank you.
it's not really a question for Eric, but just 2 plugs. One is Vibe is having their showcase this weekend. They have not been able to have any live competitions. So they are having a live stream cabaret this weekend. You can get your tickets online. And I was also thrilled to see that the high school spring musical is going to happen, in some way this year as well. So I was really excited to see those 2 things at the high school. So.
Yeah, thanks, Katie. I mean, they're so talented, so it's great that they can perform in public or quasi-public again because they're just so good. Diane?
I just want to say that the orchestra will be performing, and they'll be videoing it this week and releasing that as well.
Great. Okay. All
And
right.
Eric, congrats on your win this weekend.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, we've gone, in my high school career, we've gone 6-0 against all the D1 teams that we've played. And that hasn't happened, so.
I think that's a testimony to good goalkeeping, Eric. Yeah. That's so. All right. Well, next on the agenda is the superintendent's report. So Dr. Cook has a full slate for us. And
yes, thank you, Chairman Calloway, and thank you, Eric, for the update. Always difficult to follow your lead, but thank you for that. Wanted to start with a thank you to the board. March is Board Member Appreciation Month, and thanks to Wendy, you should have received a small token of our gratitude and the town's appreciation for your work. I have been asked quite frequently in the past, do board members receive compensation? And so the answer is no. Board members do this completely of their free will, and they give a lot of their own time in meetings, and then quite a bit more outside of meetings. And so it often goes unnoticed. And so thank you on behalf of the students of Madison for everything you do for them. Just a few general updates before I get into the agenda items there. As I've shared with the board and the public, the vaccine is moving incredibly fast for our communities, our educational communities. And so we had the opportunity on Friday to have an additional clinic. And so going forward, it most likely will be Thursdays that we have clinics available to us, but we had 100 doses available on Monday, and found out about that on Friday. And so, there was a point there to think about, could we pull this off? But we didn't feel we were in a position to say no to anything of those offers around vaccines. And so thank you to Heather Dobson for basically working all weekend on scheduling and responding. And as you can imagine, then people would get back to her and say, I just received an appointment somewhere else. I want to give it to a different staff member. And So she just had, back and forth on emails all weekend. And then Monday morning, we got thrown a little curveball with the way the scheduling was working, and she, handled it. So it was just tremendous. Thank you to Gail and Liz for helping with planning and working it out. And then for principals in the building for coverage. As you can imagine, it's, we can't stop our operation to have people do the vaccinations, and that happened in Guilford. And so a little bit of turnaround time, obviously, for people to drive over, get their vaccination and come back, wait the 15 minutes, then come back. So, principals made it work within their buildings. And then a huge thank you to Peggy Lyons and Trent Joseph, who've been on just countless Zoom calls to make this happen and help us support that. So it's really been great. And I had my meeting with the Brown faculty, and they were just incredibly appreciative that they were able to do it through our closed clinics and get it done. And so there's about 5 members that were able to do it, and they spoke up, and the others were all very excited. I think that previous survey results that we saw that indicated, about 15% or more were unsure or were saying no. I think that has completely shifted. I think there's a very small number now that, are saying no. So my hope is that within 3 weeks, this being week 1, that we are completely vaccinated on round 1, and then we would start round 2 on April 1. So it's like I said, it's moving pretty quick. Also, I know very important to the board is our ongoing discussions about hand reopening, and that even came up during our discussion with the facilities committee tonight. We talked about heating our outdoor tents to be able to utilize more space outside faster, as one of our main issues is giving students a place to eat safely. We're working with the hand administration and meeting tomorrow to kind of pick up where we left off and on that. And we are planning a survey. I hope to have that out. Got a little delayed, but we hope to have that out either by the end of this week or early next week to really find out from our families. We are at 25% full distance learners, which is the highest number we've had. So we want to really see, does this mean if they're offered 5 days a week, would the students come in? How many would come in? Would some that are in cohorts now choose to stay out? Can we offer a cohorting option going forward? Because we do hear from families, that they're concerned if we go full in. So I think it's just really finding that right balance, but working towards that. We expect the governor to remove some further restrictions on Thursday, which could impact prom, which we are holding dates for. I think that's a little ways off. Graduation certainly is something we're watching, and so how do we keep moving forward, staying safe, which we are doing a really good job as a community. We moved out of the red zone to the orange, so that was a positive move just this past week, and we hope that even moves better coming up. But there's just lots of indicators we're watching. Certainly vaccines will help, but we got some hurdles to overcome and work with the health department. It's not certainly just a administration decision. So that was those pieces. Back to the items, unless there's any questions that might make sense for me to ask there, if there's any questions on those 2 vaccines or hand reopening.
I'm thrilled about the vaccines. It's time, and I'm so grateful that we've been able to execute and roll it out as quickly as we have. I have a lot of questions about reopening, but it sounds like we're not quite there, so I'll save them for next time.
Okay.
I have a quick question. You said you were talking about using heaters for tents outside. Is that the only other option for the lunch waves to make it safe?
Well, in traditionally, and I have seen this, the students spread out, in safe spots throughout the school, so they use lots of areas, but it would just be an additional spot. And Bill and I have talked a lot about it, where there is quite a bit of ventilation still, but it's warmer, and so it's not, really well sealed, that air is caught in there. Guilford has been utilizing them this year, and so I think it's just another option to provide students, and hopefully we're seeing some warmer weather later this week. Hopefully we continue, but we just wanted to make sure we looked at every option.
I know one of the issues was the for the tents was the wind. I know we had a lot of wind last night, but I don't really know how you can predict that. So will we just go ahead and put tents up and then pending weather take them down again? Like, I'm not really sure how you do that.
Bill, I'll let you address that.
Yeah, we rent the tents, and part of the rental fee is the guys come out. They watch the weather and they come adjust the tents. And actually they come repair them because they do get damaged. I think we lost 3 to 5 of them the last fall, and they just fix them and repair them or replace them. So they're on it. So they do handle it, and that's one of the positive things about when we rent them.
Thank you.
Okay. Was there anything else?
I'll just say thank you for the beautiful spring flower arrangement to brighten my day this morning. Speaking for myself, it is an honor serving on the board, and it was a very nice token of springy sunshine today. So thank you.
Yes, and it made my husband a little nervous. So no, thank you very much. It was very appreciated.
I thought they had the wrong house.
I did too, Diane.
Like, I don't get flowers. Who is this for?
Yeah, I had the same exact response, like, you're in the wrong house. It was very kind. Thank you.
I have a question about the United Hand celebration. Anything on that?
I know there's a meeting coming up that Principal Solitary set up for later this week, I believe. I saw an invite.
I actually serve on the Night in Hand committee, Violet. It's not a school event. It's a private entity that does it. But we do use the school, and the plan is for, most of it is secretive up until the day, but we are working very closely with the health department right off the bat to make sure that everything is done within the guidelines for COVID.
Okay, I was just curious, and I didn't get my flowers, but my neighbor, I think, has them.
No fair.
Sorry about that. We'll check into that tomorrow.
That's okay.
The neighbor's like, score.
But thank you.
I believe, Violet, the reason for that was because it was so cold today.
Yeah.
They wouldn't leave them unless someone answered the door.
Yes, I was working, so big gesture. That is very kind. Thank you.
So my next item was just an update on where we stand with the budget and the ACERA 2 grant. And so we have, as I've shared, it's kind of a slower time frame on the state because the funds are really available for next school year. But the state has given us some information about that. They will be sending out a consultant, or someone will meet on Zoom to work with the district to determine uses for the ACERA 2 funds, which came in the amount of $344,000 basically. We have had some internal discussions on what we're looking at, and we are hoping to target language arts interventionists for Ryerson and Jeffrey. And so right now we have one for each building. This would give us one for most likely K to 1 and then 2 to 3. Certainly we're going to target where the needs are, within the building. The principals would move them around, but just in general, it'd be going from 1 per 4 grades to 1 per 2 grades. We are also would utilize 1 for each school, K to 3 as well, with an expected spike in enrollments. And, we'll talk a little bit about that later on in the agenda, but we are thinking that we will see an increase in first grade, potentially even kindergarten, and we need to be ready for that within the buildings. It most likely would be that we hire an elementary teacher that would be ready to be deployed to the grade level of the greatest need. There's not a lot of space at Ryerson. There is at Jeffrey to be able to be ready for this change, but there's there's some increase in enrollment coming. And so that will, in a lot of ways, though it's a grant, it's a new cost, and it will help, really offset what would otherwise be a budgeted item. And so if we didn't have this grant, I would predict that I'd be coming to you, either sometime late spring or over the summer to ask for additional funding for classroom teachers. SEL support is something, social emotional learning support is something we definitely feel we need for K-3, and then also for Polson. And then, that would total, we're predicting about 5.5 teachers for next year, to the tune of about $320,000. There'd be some additional funding available, and we would look for, most likely social emotional support throughout the district. Just wanted to give you a high level update on that, and also talk about the next item, which was summer school options. And so we've given the board, based on discussions around budget time, 3 summer school options. Given the grant that we received after that fact, that when that was built, we feel that the interventionist would have much more impact over our needs for those students, because you're talking about being able to reach every student of need, throughout the school year during a targeted time where we know they're going to be there. And so in many ways, we do not feel that we need the summer school option quite as much, and we knew there was some kind of consternation on the board, and we had some too, because we don't know, and as Gail had said throughout, we're not sure that we're going to be able to staff it. We don't know how many students will come, because our experience last summer was that staff didn't, we're not excited about working over the summer, and we completely understand that. And families wanted to really decompress, and so with the summer coming up, that we think they'll have a little bit more option to travel and do things. We're not sure that we would necessarily reach our students. So we wanted to put that on the board's plate and be ready for a discussion. Gail and I are ready for a discussion on the summer school options tonight, or anything regarding the SARA 2 grant. As I shared with the board, we are expecting the potential for additional grant funding, that I see that, at this point, without knowing the amount, without knowing that it's firmed up by the by Washington, that we would, most likely target to continue those efforts, as we're monitoring them and seeing how it's working for the following school year. So we're talking 22, 23 would be, the ability to continue those interventionists and continue those additional classroom support and SEL support through any additional grant funding that is at this point unknown. So with that, I'll open it up to questions you might have on those 2 items.
I have a question. So during the whole budgeting process, we did not hear about extra interventionists or the request for extra social emotional support. Those weren't brought up at all. In fact, everything that was brought up as related to COVID, we approved, even the program that we weren't sure what it would be shaped like. So I'm just wondering, did we not think we were going to have those needs at this point, at that point? Like, how come we have them now and we didn't have them 2 weeks ago?
So we definitely had them. We definitely had the concerns throughout. I think we were operating under really an assumption that we were to keep the budget as low as possible. There was really a lot of concern for taxpayers, the upcoming referendum potentially on a school building, that we needed to, keep things low. We've heard, a lot of concerns about the 2 additional positions we did add. Those were prioritized as something that I think had been, on the docket for a while, had been discussed about. The new technology person was was relatively new, but the additional devices, I think, showed the need for that. So no, I think that, that was a concern. I think, the summer program was really our way to try and address that in a very low cost manner without adding staff in the best way we could.
So my follow-up question would be, if we're adding all of these people with the grant, how does that, can you add short-term people, or because when I asked that about the technology specialist, I was told it impacts, there's collective bargaining impacts and you can't because that's so are we able to add people for 2 years, or is this people that we're going to be adding and then they're going to be on the budget line for as long as because it's not based on enrollment, right? So once they get added, it's hard to not have them anymore.
Oh, great question. Yes, so teachers' contracts are for a year. They're continual unless they are, non-renewed for budget would be, most likely the case that you're referring to. And so at the end of those 2 years, if it was determined that those positions were something we couldn't fund or not needed, if we were to get, we're addressing, some gaps that are impacting our youngest learners for the most part. So then what would happen is those would be non-renewal for budget, and those staff members after the 2 years, if they had seniority, they would stay with us. If not, they would then, be laid off. Oftentimes, they would be able to find positions elsewhere. It's that's common. Or we could have retirements. If we ever were into a year that we had 3 to 4 elementary retirements and those staff members were doing great, it would be something that they would be eligible to take those positions. And it may be at the end of it, we find such a positive result from them that would be something we'd propose to the board to continue.
And just along those lines, I mean, my sense is until we really get back into the learning loss is something that still, I think, needs to be unraveled, given that we've been a year in kind of an erratic sense. And so it's kind of nice to have these supports in place as we are doing that unravel. I don't think we can have enough supports socially, emotionally, or academically at this point, given the weirdness of this year for students.
I thought it was sort of standard procedure that you don't add a position using a grant, because then they become a line item on the budget. Like that something has to be budgeted in through the budget process when you add a position. And I thought that once they join, they're part of the union, and then they are not really able to be factored out.
So it's in that piece, it's similar to the reduction that we have in the budget for hand. And so, we see a reduction of 80 to 90 potential students for next year. And so we are reducing FTE at hand for next year. And, as I look back in previous budgets, you've done that previous years as well. We do our best to maintain the staff members. So I think that over the years, they've been able to do that through retirements, attrition, and so, it's not uncommon, for someone to maybe take a leave, on maternity or something like that. And so you then slot that person in. The exposure is 26 weeks of unemployment for that staff member. But like I said, most times that the employee, would be able to find positions. I think we've seen that. I've had those conversations with Heather over, how it's gone the last few years when she's had reductions, and she said, people have been able to do well. I think we, from what I've seen and seen the professional development, we train people well, and I think Madison teachers are attractive to other districts out there.
And are these you said there are 2 interventionists that you want to get, 1 for each elementary school, and these are like one FTE each?
It would be, and again, we would present this in greater detail, but it'd be 5.5 was what our discussions have led us to here, for that. And then, I think the other thing we'd want to think about is, $344,000 is a lot of money. It doesn't approach anywhere near what some other districts are seeing, but I think that we would want to invest in staff with that. I think it'd be hard for us to address the needs of students without utilizing staff members. I think we'd be looking at programming or short-term staff or something like that. I don't think it'd be as impactful for that.
At this point, I want to say that Greg did the right thing by raising his hand, followed proper protocol. So of course I ignored him, but Greg, sorry, go ahead.
That's all right. And some good conversation. And some of what I was going to ask is out there, but to me, it sounds like this is a reasonable response to some of the situations that are in front of us, right? So I think that's the intention of a lot of these grants, is to be able to respond to the immediate concerns that we have. And it sounds like this is a long list of things that would help us respond to those concerns. I will just make a suggestion that who knows what next year will bring in terms of the budget process. So I'm really talking here about the 2022-2023 budget. But when we're thinking about that budget and whether we get any grants like that, if it's possible to spread the grants out or the use of the grants over multiple years, that might help with a lot of what I think all the boards talk about in terms of minimizing surprise in terms of jump in overall cost for the town. So if we do maintain this higher level of staffing over multiple years out into fiscal year 23, fiscal year 24 and beyond, it might help to smooth that curve out if some of it is grant funded in the upcoming budget year and some of it is line item on our actual budget.
Yeah, I think that's good points. And we were, I would say, originally looking at that until we recognize that there's most likely a third grant behind it.
So I will put out, sorry.
Sorry.
No, go ahead.
I'll put out just one more time. I know we have received about $500,000 in grants this year. And I do think this most recent one did not have the stipulation that we needed, that we weren't supposed to use it to take care of something else we've already funded, which is what you had said for the technology grant. So I do think we have a responsibility to the town to use this to keep our schools open, which is what we're doing. And I think what you're talking about are all things that, as Katie said, we don't know what our needs are. And I think we have a responsibility to use this for the needs that we know that we have, for sure. So, I mean, and the 5.5 FTE did not come up during the budget process. And I know that's a nice to have, but it seems like a little more than a need to have, especially since we don't know the size or scope of the problem. So what I would personally like to see is some offset of the existing budget that we passed. And particularly since the Board of Finance did ask us to go take a look back. Instead of telling us, they gave us the opportunity to come up with the reductions ourselves or the offsets ourselves, and where we find them to be most appropriate. And I think that is responsible for us to do that on behalf of the town. So just going to put that out there one more time.
And I was just going to say, I think in fairness, and I think we might see this again, that, these grants came to light well after we voted on our budget. So I think it's more complicated than that. And what I'm hearing at curriculum meetings and through our board meetings is that there have been needs identified of kids that are at risk. So to me, I think, I love what Greg said. I think, being able to stretch these dollars out is responsible and makes a lot of sense, given that, we don't have the entire district in 5 days. But I don't think there's a district in the nation that can suggest that there will not be learning loss or social and emotional needs of students after the trauma of the past year. That's my opinion.
Thank you. Diane, you had your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say, I agree with Happy. I mean, I'm not saying that we should use the entire amount, obviously, but I think that we should, make an effort to use some of it to offset some of what we've already appropriated. And, without having the Board of Finance tell us to directly reduce it by X number of dollars, they did ask us to take a second look at it, and we have yet to do that.
So just the Finance Committee did have an initial discussion on planning meeting ahead of our meeting on March 16th. So that conversation has begun, and it's coming to the Finance Committee.
All right. Does anybody have any other questions or comments concerning the grants? All right. Thank you. Well, hearing none, then we can move on. Dr. Cook, did you have anything else that you wanted to address in your remarks?
Just, I did want to share a few times, I'm pretty sure through the budget process and then through committee work, we did share our concern for enrollment for next year. And so I will say that again, that, we, in a positive way, we are expecting, an influx of students. And I know we had talked about that in the past. I'm not sure that 2 teachers will be enough. I am concerned that we could see a need for kindergarten and a first grade teacher at both those schools. So we would pivot at that point. I think we would have to look at, if we had funding elsewhere, or we had savings over the summer, we were able to identify if push came to shove and we had no other way to go, we'd probably be utilizing the interventionist to become a classroom teacher, because it's a challenge that I'm pretty sure we'll see. You'll have an enrollment report by the end of the week, hopefully at latest early next week, that will show kind of the trend in town, which is trending towards an increase in enrollment. So I just wanted to share that piece.
Dylan, can I ask just a question real quick about that? Craig, you probably have said this before, so I apologize that you might have to reiterate. What are the sources of those extra students that might be coming in? Is it just move-ins, or are there other reasons for that? What's causing the bump, I guess?
We have currently 33 homeschool students in that age band that were not there before. We had a drop of kindergarten enrollment alone of 12%, and the average in our area was about 10%. So they looked at that, and they suspect that those students a good percentage of those students will come back for first grade, or maybe even a repeat, or not repeat, but go to kindergarten. So I think that's a big piece. We've seen that. We kind of have that smaller group of kindergarten students from this year that will go through our district, and then housing stock, but it's a combination of those.
And then besides the students and the need for FTE, which we've just talked about, is there the space for that? Where are we on that?
We've asked the principals to look at it. Much less of an issue at Jeffrey Ryerson would have to make some changes within the building to do that. It's a little tighter over there. So she'd have to move some staff members to share offices, or be together in certain spaces.
Thank you.
Okay. Well, we've kind of folded board member comments into the report. So unless anybody has any other questions or concerns they'd like to raise, at this point, I'd like to invite any audience response to information that has been presented. Anybody in the public as a guest, if you'd like to make a comment or question, please go ahead and use the chat or question, and Emily can guide things along.
Thank you, Galen. Wendy, do we have any members of the public who'd like to speak? Just as a reminder to those who might have joined us, we do welcome public comment at board meetings. We just ask that you state your name and address, that you limit your comments to 3 minutes, that you not name any staff or students individually. And while we are happy to hear from you, as it is a business meeting, we are not able to respond directly or answer questions at this time, but we can follow up with you afterwards. That being said, do we have anyone would like to speak?
We don't have any hands raised as yet.
Okay. Well, and you can always email later. You know, if you have questions, we will follow up. All right, going once, going twice. Emily, you want to bring the gavel on it? There we go.
Here we go.
All right. Well, now the moment you've been waiting for, our Board of Selectmen liaison, the one and only Scott Murphy.
Thank you, Chairman Colley. Very much appreciated. So I guess first and foremost, from a Board of Selectmen update, on the 22nd of February, we passed the Board of Ed budget, which I'm assuming is great news to all of you. It was passed unanimously. And I think, you know, the discussion ensued that it was a very responsible budget that was brought forward. So we very much appreciate you guys doing what you do each and every day to ensure that our students, our administrators, our parents are having a terrific educational experience in the town of Madison. And that's why people move here. So thank you. I think the budget was spot on. And again, that has now been passed to the Board of Finance. Today, or actually last night, we completed the facilities study, which sort of dovetails from what you guys did back several years ago with the school study that Billy was involved in. I think Billy was on earlier. I don't know if he's still there or not. I see his empty office. There he is. We looked at, there he is. Hey, Bill. We looked at 47 buildings in town, which I was frankly surprised that we had 47 buildings, but we do. And we looked at sort of 3 components of our town facilities. One was the sort of the condition or state of the buildings. One was usage. And then we also looked at, which really is the reason why I'm bringing this up, we looked at emergency shelter capability as well. As we went through the exercise with emergency shelters, we did come to the resolution that Polson was the right option for the current emergency shelter based on a whole host of criteria that was vetted by the committee and by DRA, our contractor. And so, you know, that will then be put forward into either the school plan or CIP. But I think there's some pros and cons as we work through that, depending on the level of fidelity of the emergency shelter. So that study is complete. Now we'll move forward with the next phase of what that might look like in the town. And then lastly, we conducted a study for Madison Youth and Family Services, which you may or may not have heard about. Loretta J. From the state came and conducted a study. And I think the thing that struck me the most from this study, candidly, was 3 words. One was exceptional services, one was cost-effective services, and the third was comprehensive services. So to me, it completely validated the work that Madison Youth and Family Services is doing every day for our children. And frankly, they touted the collaboration that is happening on every single day with Madison Public Schools. So I think, you know, again, you guys, administration, teachers, and certainly the counseling staff should be applauded for the relationship that we have with Madison Youth and Family Services, and that it's meeting the needs of our town in the right way and what is being asked of us. So I think that's the report that I wanted to give today. And certainly happy if there are questions, I'm happy to engage, or you can reach out. But that's the Board of Selectmen update. End of report.
Okay. Thank you. Do we have any questions? All right. Thank you, Scott.
How'd I do, Bill? Did I do okay? Nice.
All right. Next on our agenda is the consent agenda. There were no line item transfers. We have all received a list of the budget expenditures as of February 25th. It's included in our packet. We need a motion to accept these budget expenditures.
So moved.
Okay, Greg, thank you. Do we have a second?
Second, Diane.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Discussion? All in favor?
Right.
Aye.
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 All opposed? The ayes have it. Motion passes. Thank you very much. At this point, we are moving to our committee reports. The first on the list is our curriculum and student development, and that's led by Diane. And
We met on February 23rd. We had our Assistant Superintendent, Gail Dolling-Hench, give a presentation on the Easy CBM Fall 2020 and Winter 2021 assessment results for K-8, focusing on the 50th percentile benchmark, as was requested by our committee. We did discuss grades kindergarten and first grade in particular when comparing the fall to winter results. I know everyone on the board got emailed a copy of the data and everything already, so everyone had a chance to look at that. But specifically, what we were noticing with some concern was the kindergarten and first grade 50th percentile with regards to letter sounds and phoneme segmenting, and how it had dropped with letter sounds from 71% in the fall to 38% in the winter, and also with the phoneme segmenting went from 83% in the fall to 45% in the winter. And so we did discuss possible reasons for that, and how it was not a nationally normed number due to COVID, because there's nothing nationally normed during a pandemic. But we also discussed about foundations and how it was implemented for grades 1 and 2 in the fall, because we were expecting this in their grades, but kindergarten and third grade did not start with foundations until January. So we are hoping to see with the next testing an increase in the results. We did sort of run out of time when we were discussing all of this, but we are going to be meeting, our next meeting will be getting a presentation from the elementary school principals, who are going to talk about how the data is being used and examining student growth and what would trigger reteaching. And Gail, do you want to jump in, and did I hit everything, or did you want to say anything?
No, thank you very much, Diane. No, I think you hit the finer points. I know Kelly Spooner's on the call now, and she is prepared to give a thorough presentation about one of our tier 1 interventions. And Becky Frost is going to be going over a case scenario of someone who received a higher level of intervention. So we're looking forward to showing those illustrative examples.
Thanks. And it was noted that we were presented with data from grades K through 8, and that the overall test scores were somewhat better in the older grades. And it was also noted that among the problematic assessments, that the percentage of students, a large percentage of them were virtual. And so that's something that also we are looking to see how it's going to be addressed, and we will follow up with this again. End of report.
all right, thank you. Thank you, Diane. Again, we're open for discussion, comments, questions before we move on to the next committee. It was a good presentation or report, Diane, if nobody has any questions. So thanks. All right, next up is Dr. Pellegrino, Chair of Communications.
Communications Committee has not met, no report.
All right, thank you, Tom. Moving right along to Emily on facilities.
Yes, thank you. The Facilities Committee met this evening at 6:30 via Zoom. We did have a special guest, Mr. Chuck Warrington from Colliers. We spent a majority of our time talking about the building project discussion, which will continue to be the majority of the Facilities Committee work. You heard a little bit earlier from Dr. Cook. Bill McMinn was, of course, there, gave an update. They're meeting weekly, Dr. Cook, Mr. McMinn, and Mr. Warrington from Colliers to review the plan. We did review the milestone and project schedule that was shared with the board. That goes into great detail about the process for grant applications, design, construction, basically starting sort of where we left off about a year and a half ago, recognizing that there are going to be changes post-COVID and refinements as necessary. So revisiting what we've done with updated studies, updated site options, taking a closer look at the budget, and as we've discussed, enrollment reports will play a big part in that work. So we do have consultants that we've re-engaged for both the educational specifications and the enrollment reports and demographic reports. We do hope to get that full enrollment report, as you heard, by the end of the week. Next steps after we get that would be meeting with the state office to share those numbers, look towards our master plan, and then make any adjustments to the design and budget as necessary. Definitely more tests needed in terms of possible site locations as well, because where the building is built and the site will impact the final numbers. Bill also reported, as we heard from our Selectmen liaison, that the town facility study will definitely have a big impact in our decision-making process, and that we need to consider this. We will discuss this at our next meeting. In particular, talking about the shelter needs and how that impacts our buildings, and talking about what might be done with Jeffrey School after we pass the keys along to the town for that. Katie Stein did remind us all that this is definitely a long process. We're looking ahead to a possible occupation date of fall of 2025. So recognizing this is a long time, a lengthy process for sure. We also discussed security funds. The board will be going into an executive session on March 16th to go into greater detail about the specifics and how we'll be using CIP funds to enhance our existing security. Talked a little bit more about enrollment and birth rates like you heard today. I won't repeat what Dr. Cook mentioned, but should be very interesting to see those numbers and those trends. And then finally, Bill ended our meeting with facility director updates, talked about looking ahead to summer planning, some of the regular maintenance, keeping up with the work, painting, carpeting. The carports were approved on February 18th by planning and zoning. So the goal is to have those up and running by the beginning of the school year in the fall. You also heard about trying to get the tents back up this month at the schools, in particular, the option of heating those tents at the high school. They continue to work on improving ventilation at Ryerson and Jeffrey in particular, and also looking at how to make some more space in the gyms at Ryerson and Jeffrey, move some furniture out of there that we've been storing so that the kids can have more space in the gyms during the school day. The water fountains, as you may have seen in the paper, were received. We're grateful for that donation, and Bill hopes to install them in April over the school break. And that was the end. There was no public comment at the meeting, and that we adjourned at 7:25. End of report. Any questions or comments? I'm happy to answer.
All right. Well, that was superb. Thank you. Dr. McNerney, on personnel, do we have a report? Anything from that committee?
Skipped me.
Oh, I'm so sorry, Katie. All right, I'm so eager to get to Violet. All right, Katie.
I really don't have a report. The finance committee has not met, but we do meet on March 16th.
All right. All right, thank you. Sorry about that. All right, Violet, your turn.
I don't have a report at this time either.
Okay, thank you so much. I think our last one, if I'm not out of sequence, is the policy committee led by Happy Marino.
Yes, so we have 8 policies for second reading, 9.6.1 through 9.6.8. They're all in your packet. And then we have 6 policies for first reading, 9.6.9 through 9.6.14. We did get some board member comments and questions that were sent to us about these policies. I think the second reading, not the first reading, some of the second reading policies. And we will take those back to committee and talk about them in our committee and then come forward to you again. So there's not really anything else to report. Just please take a look and let us know if you have comments or questions.
Can I ask one thing? This is mostly administrative. So this is something I've only noticed since I'm not on the policy committee anymore. Thank you, Happy. When you're looking at the exhibit and you're a policy committee member, so the full list of all the policies that are being considered, if you're a policy committee member, there's an excellent and useful inclusion of any policy that's being rescinded if we're looking to replace a policy. So not just lines that are being changed in a policy when it's a full rescission. And it doesn't appear that the full board gets that. So I'm wondering if that could be distributed to the whole board as well as to the committee. So again, this is just in the case that you'd be, and I think Wendy is often just written at the top, to be rescinded, and then you can see the old policy. It's just a lot easier than trying to track that down.
Absolutely.
We will make a note of that. And sorry, Craig, go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I should let you answer.
I'm sure that your answer is going to be more complete than mine. So I said, we'll make a note of that and we'll try to get that to you. But if you have more to add or color to add to that, I would much appreciate it.
I was going to say yes. We could do that.
Thank you both.
Will we get it for these policies that are in their second reading before the third reading?
Yeah, we're going to talk about them anyway at the policy committee meeting, Diane. So you should have it.
And that meeting is next Monday? No, it's not. Sorry.
It's this, I believe
16th.
it's the 16th as
It
well.
is the 16th.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you. All right, Katie, I'm making up for missing you last time. This is for the Learn Liaison.
Well, this time I actually have something to say. So this was a good one to remember. I attended the Learn Board of Directors meeting on February 11th. And it was a great meeting. Fran Rubinowitz, who's the executive director of CAPS, was there to present on the blueprint to transform Connecticut's public schools. She discussed the newly released governor's proposed state budget resulting in reduced educational cost share funding. She shared the document across the state with state representatives and senators, and it's been broadly accepted. She summarized the intent of the 30 proposed objectives in the plan, or the blueprint, highlights that this approach is holistic and hoping for a systemic overhaul to school funding versus a few quick fixes. She also mentioned in the presentation of the plan that it's the funding model would mean no districts would lose their ACS funding, meaning the blueprint will require an investment of significant funds to support all students in Connecticut. The blueprint is a 15-year cohesive plan to include all districts, educators, and the legislator working together with a well-defined common goal. A Gantt chart is also being built by CAPS to outline the work of the blueprint over the next 15 years. And our next meeting in March, we will be discussing learning loss. So that was discussed as we discussed as a district earlier, as a board earlier. So they're digging in as well at looking at learning loss among student population and how to create ways to regain the learning that's been missed. Some districts are looking, as we are, at extended school year to make up deficits. And we also will be discussing the, Dr. Cook pronounced it properly. I'm just going to say the letters ESSER funding that has come through. So I think most districts are grappling as we are with the same issues, which is reassuring in some way. End of report.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Katie. Are there any questions or comments about what's going on at Learn? All right. Hearing none, we have an action item on our agenda. We need a motion to approve the minutes of the February 9th, 2021 Board of Education meeting.
So moved.
Okay, Greg.
Second, Diane.
Okay, thank you, Diane. Do we have any discussion on the minute? Hearing no discussion, we can move to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Is there any old business that we would like to bring up at this point? All right, nothing there. I would urge everybody to take a look at the meetings of importance as Scott, who's in the thick of things with the Board of Selectmen and our Board of Finance compatriots. We have a whole list of things. We have a public hearing tomorrow for the budget. We have on the 16th, we have our Finance Committee, a Policy Committee meeting, and then a Board of Ed meeting. I think the Board of Finance also meets on the 9th and 11th for workshops. And then on March 24th, there is a tri-board meeting budget review. So pretty full calendar this month and next throughout the budget season. And I'd encourage you to take a look at those dates. What we'll do now is we'll need a motion in a minute to enter into executive session. And then we will come out of it, and the public part of this meeting then will be adjourned after we come out of executive session. So if we have any guests or members of the public, what will happen is we'll go into executive session. There's no other agenda item after that. It'll just be adjournment. So I'd like everybody to just be aware so they don't have to wait. Do we have a motion to enter into executive session to discuss potential land acquisition?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Thank you, Greg.
Chairman Kelly, we might have missed that on paper, but if the motion could invite Mr. McMinn and myself to executive session.
Yeah, thank you. So
sorry about that.
No, I should have caught that. Thank you. All right, so Greg, how do I rescind the motion?
Katie just has to accept that friendly amendment.
Okay.
I would like to invite Bill and Dr. Cook.
All right, and then we need, do we need a new motion second for that? No, we're good. Okay, excellent. All right, so go ahead, Diane.
Let's vote.
Oh, yes, thank you. All right. All right. So I assume there's no further discussion, so we will put up to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Here, no nays. Any abstentions? All right, motion carries. We will now enter into executive session. So board members will just stay put, and Mr. McMinn and Dr. Cook, and
as we get virtually shuffled.
Right.
Right.
Yes, so at this time, we would like to ask attendees who would not be part of executive session, if they could please leave the meeting, if we could give them a moment to leave the meeting. We're just about there. We still have one person in the attendees.
How do you keep people from
Okay.
entering back in though?
I'm going to be here monitoring it. They won't
okay.
be allowed to go back in. And I'm now going to pause the recording. Let me just